Hi guys, this is David. Welcome to the channel. This is the second part of the stack tutorial. If you didn't watch the first part, please go back and watch that one. Because in that tutorial, in that video, let me turn the volume down on the music. I think that's better. Because on the first tutorial we created actually a stack class that we're going to be using, so it's important to see that we have the stack class, and I kind of like explained how the stack works. So please just go back and watch that tutorial first, and then you can come back and check this one. Unless you're very familiar with the stacks, then you can continue watching this tutorial. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and just give me a like. I need it, man. Okay, so we have the stack of characters class that we created, and we also have a stack app class. I just commented out all the code that we did for the first tutorial, so there's nothing in this class. Basically it's just a main in here. That's just the main, and I just created a string. So we're going to be working on the problem. Let me find the problem actually. Let me draw real quick and find the problem. There's a problem on Leetcode, that I want to show you guys. Come on. That's from Leetcode, and I guess that's a brackets problem. Brackets, no brackets. Brackets. Let's see if we can find it. Valid parentheses. This is the one. I checked it before. Okay, so we're gonna be trying to work on this type of problem. I just take a look at it. Okay, so this is the problem. It says giving a string S containing just the characters, the brackets in here, determine if the input string is valid. An input string is valid if open brackets must be closed by the same type of brackets, and open brackets must be closed in the correct order. I don't know what's going on with my computer. It's very slow. I guess my mouse is not. Open brackets must be closed in the correct order. I guess it was the website. I have no idea. And then every closed bracket has a corresponding open bracket of the same type. So we're gonna try to solve this problem using the stack class that we created, and it returns a boolean. So I'm gonna close this. Let's go back in here. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna be using the stack to solve this problem, and the way that we're gonna be solving, we're gonna go through the string of characters, and we're gonna be checking each character. If we find a open bracket, then the open brackets, only the open brackets. So let's say that I'm going through this string here. The open brackets that we find, we're gonna send those brackets into the stack. So first there's a square bracket, okay, and then it's gonna find a closing bracket, but that one is not gonna go into the stack. Then it's gonna find another open bracket. That open bracket will go into the stack, okay, and then it will find another open bracket. That one will go into the stack. So only opening brackets will go into the stack. Now if I go in order, okay, in the beginning we're going to be looping, so we're going to be creating a for loop, and I'm going to be finding the first. So I'm going to go in order now. I'm going to find the first open bracket, and I'm going to send that one into the stack. Okay, then I'm gonna find a closing bracket. Once I find a closing bracket, the action, let me put it here, I found the closing bracket. The action is to pop the last item in the stack. So there's only let me just make a separation. Okay, so the first item, only open brackets going to the stack, so we have one bracket into the stack. Once I find a closing bracket, we found one, then we're gonna pop the item, the last item from the stack. The stack gives you the last item. So once I find a closing bracket, the action is to pop the item from the stack. There's only one item in the stack right now. It's gonna pop, it's gonna give me this type of bracket, and then I'm going to compare these two brackets. If they don't equal, if they're not the same type of brackets, then I'm gonna send an error message. Okay, but in this case, these two brackets match, and as I popped this value from the stack, okay, the stack is empty because I popped the item, it's gone. Then it's gonna find this type of bracket, this bracket, it's gonna go into the stack. Okay, I'm gonna make separation. Then we're gonna find the closing bracket in here, and as I said, once we find the closing bracket, we're gonna pop the item that we have in the stack. The item that we have in the stack is this one, and then we're gonna compare these two items and make sure they match. If they don't match, we're gonna send an error message. Okay, as we pop that item from the stack, that item is gone. Then we're gonna find this type of bracket. That's an open bracket, and we know open brackets go into the stack. Then it's going to keep on checking. Then it's going to find another open bracket. We know open brackets go into the stack. Okay, then it's going to find a closing bracket. Once we find a closing bracket, what do? We found the closing bracket. What we do, we pop the last item from the stack. Well, we pop the item, the stack gives you the last item, so the last item that was added into the stack is this one. Okay, so we found the closing bracket, we pop the item from the stack, it's going to give us this type of bracket. They do match, but we check. If they do not match, we send an error, but we pop the message, so that bracket is gone from the stack because we popped it. Then it's going to continue. It's going to find another closing bracket. Once we find a closing bracket, what do? We pop the item from the stack, and now there's only one item in the stack, so we pop the item, and we know the pop method, as we saw in the first video, it's going to give us the item that is in the stack, which is the last one and the only one. And then we're going to be checking these two and see if they match. If they match, good. If they don't match, then we're going to send an error message. Okay, so they want us to return a boolean, so we'll return a boolean. Let me create a method in here. So it's going to be a public method. Public boolean, we call it is valid, I don't know, brackets, is valid brackets. Okay, and it's gonna take a string. I'm not using the proper names for the methods and for the variables, but when you guys are working, make sure that you're very specific in the name of the variables and in the name of the methods that you use, as we don't use comments sometimes in the code. And if another developer is looking at your code, he should know what's happening or what you're doing, or to be able to understand the code. So let's try to use proper names for every single thing. This is just a tutorial. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to be creating a class of the type stack. So we're going to create a stack of characters. So the stack of characters is right here, and it's going to be the stack of characters is going to equal new stack of characters. Okay, now this is going to take the size, so I'm going to be creating an int size because I'm going to be using this value twice, once to create a stack and another one to create a loop. Otherwise I wouldn't create a variable. If I'm just going to use it once, then I would put str.length inside of here, but because I'm using it twice, I do not want to duplicate code. Okay, so you'll see that this variable will be used twice, and that's when you need to, that's when you know that you need to create a variable if you're duplicating code. Okay, so the for loop, it's gonna equal int I equals 0, and here's the place where we use the variable again, so it's twice, and then I plus plus. Now we're gonna be using this loop as we did in the first tutorial to push the characters into the stack. So first of all, we need to create a variable, a temp variable, a character variable, to put all the characters from the string into this variable, and then we'll move them into the stack. So this is going to equal the str.char@, and as we mentioned in the first tutorial, oops, what the heck is going on? As we mentioned in the first tutorial, we use the char@ method to get access to the characters in the string. So this is the string, and then we use the char@ index 0 to get the character at index 0 in the beginning. Then this is going to be incremented, so this is going to be later on the index 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to give us access to all the characters in those positions. Okay, now we know that all the characters from the string are going to go into this variable, but we don't want all the characters in the string. We only want the open brackets. Remember, only open brackets go into the stack. So we're going to be using a switch statement, and we're going to be switching on this one. Okay, so we're going to be creating some cases. The first case, let's do this open bracket right here, and then let me just copy this, and we're going to be pasting here. Now this is going to be, I guess, the square bracket. This one should be the round bracket. I don't know what it does at this time. Okay, so we're switching right now. Now, as you guys know, the in a switch, in a case, you can put the code that you want to execute in this line. So let's say that I'm executing a code, but let's say that I forget to use a break, then this code will be executed in this case. But if I don't use a break, it will fall through to the second case, and this code will be executed on the second case, on the third one, and so on until it finds a break. Okay, so we're going to take advantage of the fall through, and if any of these three cases is found, then we want to push the ch, the character, into the stack. So we're just gonna push these characters into the stack. So we're gonna push ch into the stack, and also we want to print ch to see it, so we can see what we're pushing into the stack. And then let's not forget to break, otherwise it will fall through to the next cases, and the next cases will be different. This is just to put the open brackets into the stack as we're pushing them. And then let me just copy this. Let's copy this and let me paste this right there. Okay, now we're going to be looking for the closing brackets. So this one should be the square bracket, and this one should be the round bracket. There we go. Okay, now if we found a closing bracket, as I mentioned, the action is to pop the item from the stack and check if the closing bracket matches the open bracket. So what we're gonna do in here, we're gonna do an if first of all, and make sure the stack is not empty. There we go. So first of all, if there was no open brackets in the string that we were sent, so let's say that there were no open brackets, then the stack is going to be empty, and so we want to make sure, you know, that the stack is not empty first of all. And if it's not empty, we said that we were going to pop the values from the stack to get the open brackets. So we're going to create another character. We're going to call chx. By the way, guys, if you don't have a good book in structures and algorithms, the book that I have on the cover of this video, the picture of the book, that's Data, Structures and Algorithms by Robert Laforgue, second edition. That's the book that I would recommend you guys to buy. Okay, so that's a book that I use for the tutorials. So all the code that I put in here, you know, comes from that book, everything. So that's the book that I use. Okay, so we said that we're going to be popping the characters from the stack, and if we pop a character from the stack, we know that it's going to be an open bracket because that's all we're pushing in there. So once we find a closing bracket, we have the fall through, we're going to pop the item from the let me just put it here, but we're going to pop the item from the stack, and then we're going to be comparing and making sure that you know that they're the right type of brackets. So ch fall into the type of closing bracket. So if ch equals the closing bracket and what we popped does not equal the right type of bracket, that should be the opening bracket, then that means that we have a problem. Okay, and then we want to deal with the problem. So that's one case, you know, for this type of bracket. So once again, the open bracket goes into the stack. Once we find a closing bracket, we pop the item, we pop the open bracket from the stack. I get it into this variable, and I use this variable right here to make sure that these two brackets match. Okay, I'll try to explain it at the end one more time. Let me just copy this piece of code in here. Let's just copy it, and let's do the other type of brackets. Oh man, what am I doing? Okay, let's copy this thing here. Let's do one more. Okay, now what the heck is going on? Okay, so this is what we have right now, like this, and we want to make sure this is the square bracket, and also this one should be square bracket. This one should be the round bracket, and this one also should be the round bracket. There we go. Okay, so if they do not match, then we know that we have an error. So let's just print a message. Okay, let's go system dot println, and we're gonna go in here, error not matching brackets, and as they want to send a return false, we need to return false here. There we go. Okay, we want to return false because that's what they want in the problem we saw, like a boolean. So we're returning a boolean in here, public boolean. So that's what we're returning. Okay, so if the stack, so this is checking if the stack is not empty, but if the stack is empty, that means that we didn't find any open brackets. No open brackets went into the stack. Okay, if we find any opening brackets, they go into the stack. But if the string doesn't have any opening brackets, then we know that we have a problem. So no opening brackets. We also want to send a message. We can just put in here no error, no open brackets, I guess. No open brackets, and we also want to return false. Okay, let's see, and we want to break from this one. Okay, now every single switch statement, no matter what, should have a default case. So we'll just create a default, and we're just going to break out of it. Don't forget that one. When you create the switch, you should always have a default case at the end, no matter what. Okay, now this is the for loop. We have our for loop, and we put all the opening brackets into the stack. Once we find a closing bracket, we pop the items from the stack, and that should give us the opening bracket, and then we compare the closing bracket with the open bracket. If they do not match, then we send an error message. If nothing went into the stack, that means that there was no opening brackets, we send an error message. But if we have some opening and closing brackets in there, but we didn't have the right amount of closing and opening brackets, then there should be some open brackets left in the stack because they didn't match, and then we need to send the error message. So let's get into the looping here, and in here, if the stack is not empty, I said it's not empty, then we know that there's a problem, that there wasn't the right amount of opening and closing brackets, and we're going to return false. Okay, otherwise we want to return true, and that should be it. Okay, let me just create now this method belongs to the class, the user class stack app. So if we want to test it, we need to create an object of the stack app. The stack app, and it's gonna equals new stack app, and then we can get access to the method. Is valid parentheses, and we're gonna send the parentheses in there. Oops, what happened? And then we're gonna send this one in there. Okay, now we want to check that we have the right amount of. Okay, I'm printing in here the open brackets that go into the stack, but let's also print the closing brackets that that we find. So in that case, we we can see, you know, the open and closing brackets into the console. So I'm gonna run this. And there we go. We have our opening and closing brackets. There we go. Okay. Take a look at the order also here. You see? That's the same way that we had the string in here. Okay. Just to recap, guys, let's go through it one more time. Last time. Okay. We go through each characters in the string, okay, one by one. And if we find an open bracket, what do? We put it in the stack. Okay. Once we find a closing bracket, what do? Once we find a closing bracket, we found a closing bracket in here. What do? We pop the item from the stack, which should be an open bracket. So we found a closing bracket, which in this case was the square bracket in this string. We found it. We popped the item in the stack. Right now there's only one item in the stack, and then we compare these two. If they do not match, so we compare these two. If they do not match, we send an error message. Okay. And because we popped that item is gone from the stack. Okay. Then we're gonna find another open bracket. That bracket also, it's gonna go into the stack. Okay. And then we find a closing bracket. Once we find the closing bracket, what do? We pop the item from the stack, and then we compare these two guys. So we found here, it falls into this case. It found it, that one. We pop the item into the stack, you know, and in this case there was only one item in the stack here, and we compare them. If they don't equal each other, if they're different type of brackets, we send an error message. If they equal, no problem. So as we pop that item from the stack, that item is gone. So that guy is gone. Okay, then we find another open bracket. So this open bracket, it's gonna go into the stack. So this guy goes into the stack, and then we keep on looping, and then we found another bracket, another open bracket. So that open bracket goes into the stack. Okay, so we have two items now into the stack. It could be 3, 4, 5, it doesn't matter. Then we found a closing bracket. Look at the type of closing bracket. It's in the right order. So we found a closing bracket. So what do? We pop the item from the stack, and as we know, the stack is going to give us the last item that was added to it. So it's going to give us this one. So we popped the item, and then also we compare these two. If they're the right type, good. If not, you know, we send an error message. So they do match. So this item has been popped from the stack. So this guy is gone. Okay, that guy is gone. So we keep on looping, and then we found another closing bracket. Once we found the closing bracket, what do? We pop the item from the stack. There's only one item left. We pop this item from the stack, and then we compare these two values and make sure they equal. If they don't equal, then we send an error message. Okay, if nothing went into the stack, then that means that there were no opening brackets. Okay, so we check and make sure that the stack is not empty, but if it is empty, we send an error message. If there was anything left in the stack, then that means that we didn't have the right amount of open and closing brackets into the stack. In that case, we send an error message, and that's about it, guys. I hope the video was not too long. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm just beginning right now. I'm just creating tutorials. I don't see that many views in here. I know there's plenty of tutorials out there. Plenty of people just creating content for everybody, so it's kind of difficult to do this type of stuff and have some views. So please, if you watch the video and you liked it, just subscribe to the channel and just give me a like and have a good one. And we'll see you next time. I guess I'll be working on the queues, maybe. Yeah, queues, I think. Not really sure, but I'll see you guys next video. Thank you. Bye.